Lieutenant James Carter never saw the flak burst that tore through the left wing of his P-51. One moment he was banking above the forests of western France. The next he was spiraling in a column of black smoke, the engine shrieking like a wounded animal. He fought the stick with numb hands, feeling the aircraft buck and twist beneath him, every warning light screaming at once. Flames crawled along the fuselage, licking toward the cockpit, and the heat forced him to bail out before he lost consciousness. He pulled the release and felt the violent, stomach-wrenching jolt as the parachute snapped open. Below him, the forest stretched like a dark, endless sea. He drifted lower, the silence broken only by gunfire in the distance and the creak of the harness straps. When he hit the ground, the impact knocked the breath from his lungs. He tore the chute free, knowing German patrols couldn't be far. His left leg throbbed, possibly fractured, every step sending sparks of pain up his spine. He limped into the trees, moving as fast as his body allowed, branches whipping his face. The smoke from his burning plane rose behind him like a signal flare for every German in the region. After 20 minutes of agonizing movement, voices echoed through the trees, German voices, sharp and alert. Carter pressed himself against a fallen log, biting down on pain and fear. His heartbeat drowned out the forest sounds. He knew the rules. If captured, he might survive. If they believed he had killed their comrades, he wouldn't. Footsteps crunched closer. Through the trees, he saw them. 5 Wehrmacht soldiers sweeping the area with rifles raised. He held his breath, praying the forest would swallow him. But then one soldier stopped. He was young, barely more than a boy, with tired eyes and a scarf wrapped tight against the cold. His gaze shifted toward Carter's hiding place. Carter froze. The boy raised his rifle, taking a step forward, then another. He was close enough now that Carter could see the tremble in his hands. Carter prepared to stand slowly, hands raised. But before he could move, the young soldier lowered his rifle. He looked directly at Carter, saw him, understood exactly who and what he was, and gave the smallest shake of his head. A warning, a plea. Stay down. The boy turned sharply and shouted to his comrades, pointing in the opposite direction, sending them deeper into the trees. The soldiers obeyed without question, disappearing into the forest. The young German lingered for a second, glancing back toward Carter's hiding place. His face carried something Carter didn't expect to see from an enemy soldier. Fear, yes, but also mercy. Then he slipped away, following the others, leaving Carter alone in the winter stillness. Carter exhaled shakily, his body trembling not from the cold, but from the realization that his life had just been spared by the very enemy he had been sent to kill. He didn't know the soldier's name, rank, or reason. All he knew was this: the war had drawn thick lines between sides, yet in that moment one man had stepped over them, and somewhere deeper in those woods, Carter sensed, their paths would cross again. And the cost of that mercy would be far greater than either of them yet understood. Carter waited until the last echo of German footsteps faded before he tried to move again. His leg nearly buckled beneath him, pain shooting through his thigh like a hot wire. He gritted his teeth and dragged himself deeper into the forest, away from the smoke, away from the place where his luck had already been stretched thin. The winter air bit at his face, carrying the distant rumble of trucks on a dirt road. He needed shelter, somewhere quiet, hidden, anywhere he could bind his leg and think. But fate found him first. Snow crunched behind him. Carter spun, raising his fists out of instinct, and froze. It was him, the young German soldier from the patrol. He had broken away from his unit, alone. His rifle hung over his shoulder, hands raised slightly, not in surrender but in caution. Carter's pulse hammered. The German approached slowly, eyes flicking to the injured leg. He whispered, his voice thick with a rural accent, "You cannot stay here. More soldiers come." Carter hesitated. Trusting a German soldier was madness, but the boy, no, young man, had already proven himself once. "What do you want?" Carter rasped. The soldier looked around nervously, as if every tree held a listening ear. "Follow me. Quiet." Carter stared at him, searching for deceit. But the German didn't wait for permission. He simply stepped forward, checking over his shoulder to see if Carter was following. Against every instinct, Carter limped after him. They moved through a narrow path between pines until a small hunting shed appeared. Old, half-collapsed, nearly swallowed by the forest. The German pushed the door open with a gloved hand and motioned him inside. The shed was cold and dark, smelling of old wood and damp leaves, but it was shelter. Carter sank against the wall, breathing hard. The German knelt beside him and tore a strip from his own scarf, wrapping it around Carter's swelling leg. "You fly?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Carter replied. "P-51. The German smiled faintly. "Fast plane?" Carter didn't answer. He watched the young man work with surprising care, tightening the makeshift bandage. "Why are you helping me?" Carter finally asked. The German paused. His gaze drifted to the floor as if searching for an answer. "My brother died on the Eastern Front," he said softly. "He was wounded, left behind. No one helped him." He swallowed hard. "If someone had..." His voice trailed off. Carter felt the weight of those words settle between them. War had taken something from both of them, just in different uniforms. Outside, a distant engine growled. The German stiffened, rising to peek through the cracks in the wooden boards. "A patrol," he whispered. They searched the woods again. He turned to Carter, urgency sharpening his features. "If they find you, they kill you and me." Carter's stomach tightened. Why risk that? The German met his eyes, and for the first time Carter saw the conflict there. The duty drilled into him, clashing violently with whatever humanity remained beneath the uniform. "Because you are a man, not an enemy now." He stepped back from the window. "My name is Elias." Carter nodded. "James," Elias offered a tight, nervous smile. "James, you must not speak if they come. Do not move. I will send them away." Carter's throat dried. "If they suspect anything..." "They will not," Elias said, though his trembling hands betrayed the fear behind his certainty. Heavy boots crunched outside, voices barking orders. Elias slipped out of the shed and pulled the door almost closed behind him, leaving Carter in darkness. Carter held his breath, every muscle tight despite the pain. He could hear them, 3, maybe 4, questioning Elias in sharp tones. A pause, then Elias's voice, steady but strained, directing them deeper into the forest. Footsteps receded. Silence returned. The door opened, and Elias stepped back inside, exhaling shakily. "They believe me," he whispered. Carter released the breath he'd been holding. In that dim, freezing shed, the truth became impossible to ignore. Elias had crossed a line he could never uncross. And Carter knew the moment the Germans discovered his betrayal, because they would, the cost would fall on the young soldier long before it ever reached him. Night settled over the forest like a heavy curtain, swallowing the last traces of daylight. Inside the hunting shed, the cold crept in through every crack, turning Carter's fingers numb despite the wool blanket Elias had found in an old crate. Elias sat opposite him, close to the door, listening for every distant snap of branches, every drifting voice carried by the wind. Carter studied him in the flickering glow of a tiny oil lamp Elias had dared to light. The young German looked far too fragile for war, cheekbones sharp from hunger, eyes shadowed by sleepless nights, uniform worn thin at the sleeves. Yet there was something fierce beneath that fragility, something resolved. "You should rest," Carter murmured. Elias shook his head. "I cannot. If they return..." His voice faded, swallowed by fear he tried to hide. Carter leaned back against the cold wood. "You didn't have to do any of this." Elias's gaze drifted to the bandage wrapped around Carter's leg. "If I leave you, you die. If I help you, maybe you live." He hesitated. "Maybe I do too." Carter wasn't sure he believed that last part, but he didn't argue. Hours passed, marked only by the soft hiss of the oil lamp and the occasional distant rumble of trucks moving along hidden forest roads. At one point, Elias slipped outside to check the perimeter. He returned moments later, breathing hard, face pale. "They bring dogs," he whispered. Carter felt a cold knot tighten in his chest. "Then we need to move." "No," Elias said quickly. "You cannot run. Your leg..." He raked a hand through his hair, pacing the cramped floor. "If they track you here, they will shoot you on sight. But if they find me with you..." Carter didn't need him to finish. The outcome was obvious. Betrayal, treason, execution. Elias stopped pacing and lowered himself onto an overturned crate. "My unit is frustrated. They lost men last week. They search for someone to blame." He looked at Carter, his voice dropping. "It is safer if they find nothing." Carter nodded, though he felt the helplessness deepening. "What will you do?" Elias hesitated. "There is an old barn outside the village, abandoned. If I take you there at dawn, you can hide, but..." He exhaled shakily. "If they see us together, they will know." Carter studied him carefully. Elias had risked his life twice already. Asking more felt like a cruelty. "Elias," Carter said softly, "you don't owe me anything." Elias's eyes flashed with something sharp. "Do not say that. This war has taken everything from us, my brother, my friends, the boy I was before all this. If I do nothing, then I am no better than the men who left my brother to die in the snow." Carter fell silent. Outside, the wind scraped through the branches, carrying the distant echo of barking dogs. Getting caught here was no longer a possibility. It was inevitable. Elias stood abruptly, as if arriving at a decision he could no longer avoid. "We leave before sunrise." Carter tried to rise, but winced as pain shot through his leg. Elias steadied him. "You can lean on me," he said quietly. "I am stronger than I look." Carter almost smiled. "I can see that now." Elias gave a small, embarrassed shrug and moved to gather what little they had. Blanket, lamp, a half-rotten loaf of bread. Then he paused, turning toward Carter with a seriousness that chilled the room. "James," his voice trembled for the first time, "if they catch me helping you, promise me something." Carter frowned. "What is it?" "Do not let them use me as a reason to kill you." Carter stared at him. "Elias..." "Promise," Elias whispered. Carter swallowed. "I promise." Elias nodded, closing his eyes briefly as if steadying himself. Outside, the dogs barked again, closer this time. Elias extinguished the lamp, plunging the shed into darkness. "Try to sleep," he whispered. "Tomorrow decides everything." Carter lay back against the cold boards, listening to the rhythm of Elias's slow, anxious breathing in the dark. He knew the boy was right. Tomorrow would decide who lived and who paid the price for mercy. Dawn came as a pale, reluctant glow behind the trees, turning the frost on the branches into a silver haze. Elias opened the shed door just enough to inspect the forest. The dogs were gone. The patrols had moved east. For now. "We go," he whispered. Carter pushed himself upright, swaying as a sharp pulse of pain flashed through his leg. Elias moved quickly to support him, slipping beneath Carter's arm. They left the shed behind, the forest muffling their footsteps as they moved toward the valley. Elias guided him through narrow animal paths only locals would know, always listening, always watching. Every broken twig under Carter's boot made Elias flinch. After an hour, the trees thinned, revealing a stretch of farmland blanketed in morning mist. A wooden barn stood alone on a gentle slope, roof sagging, door slightly ajar. "There," Elias murmured. "No one goes inside. Too old." They reached the barn just as the sun began cutting through the fog. Inside, dust floated in soft rays of light, settling on old tools and rotting hay. Elias helped Carter sit against a stack of sacks. "You rest here. I bring food later, maybe clothes, something warm." Carter studied him. "Elias, they'll notice you slipping away." Elias's jaw tightened. "I will say I patrol the woods. They trust me enough." He didn't sound convinced. Carter caught his arm. "You've done more for me than anyone could expect." Elias looked down at Carter's hand, and for a moment the harshness of war seemed to fall away. "My brother would have helped you," he said softly. "So I help you." He turned to leave, but froze when a distant engine rumbled from the road below. Elias pulled Carter deeper into the shadows. A truck approached, grinding to a stop by the barn. The back doors slammed open. Boots hit the ground. Voices barked orders in clipped German. Elias's face drained of color. "It is the Feldgendarmerie," he whispered. "The military police." Carter's breath caught. "They're searching farms." Elias pressed a finger to his lips and slipped outside before Carter could stop him. Through the cracked barn boards, Carter saw him stride toward the arriving patrol. The Feldgendarmerie sergeant stepped forward, a heavy chain hanging from his shoulder, symbol of authority. "Gefreiter Elias Weber," he said, reading from a clipboard. Carter's blood turned to ice. They knew his name. Elias straightened. "Yes, Herr Feldwebel." The sergeant's eyes narrowed. "Your unit reports unusual behavior, straying from formation, giving contradictory directions." Elias stayed still, but Carter saw the tremor in his fingers. "I scouted the woods for the pilot, sir." The sergeant's mouth twitched into a cold grin. "Interesting, because we found tracks near the old hunting shed. Fresh tracks." Elias remained silent. The sergeant leaned closer. "Where is the American?" Inside the barn, Carter's heart pounded so loudly he feared they would hear it. Elias swallowed. "I did not find him." The sergeant grabbed Elias by the collar. "If you are lying, I will know." He shoved him back and motioned his men to search the area. Boots scattered across the farmyard. Carter pulled himself deeper into the barn shadows, fighting the pain screaming through his leg. One wrong sound and they would find him. Outside, Elias paced anxiously, pretending to supervise the search, but his eyes kept flicking toward the barn. toward Carter. The sergeant noticed. He turned sharply. "You seem nervous, Weber." Elias froze. The sergeant stepped closer, lowering his voice. "A man with something to hide behaves like that." Elias tried to steady his breathing. "I am not hiding anything." The sergeant smiled, a cruel smile. "Then you won't mind if we check the barn?" Carter felt his stomach drop. Elias acted without thinking. "It is empty," he said quickly. "Just old tools. Roof will collapse soon." The sergeant's grin widened. "Then it should be a short search." He nodded to two soldiers. They moved toward the barn door. Carter clenched his fists, preparing for the worst. But before the soldiers reached the door, another voice called from the road. "Herr Feldwebel, we found something." The sergeant spun around. "What is it?" "Parachute fabric, sir, near the river." The sergeant's eyes gleamed. "Good. The American cannot be far." He rounded on Elias. "Weber, stay with me. You may still prove useful." The patrol hurried toward the river, engines roaring back to life. Carter exhaled a shaky breath as the truck disappeared into the trees. Moments later, Elias slipped inside the barn, pale and trembling. "We have little time," he whispered. "They will return, and when they do, they will search everything." Carter stared at him. "Elias, they're watching you." Elias nodded. "Yes, and that means only one thing." His voice nearly broke. "They already suspect me." Elias closed the barn door behind him and leaned his forehead against the wood, breathing as if each inhale cut his lungs. Carter tried to rise, instinct telling him to stand, to move, to do something, anything. But Elias lifted a hand weakly. "Stay, please." Carter's stomach tightened. The young German looked different now, not scared, resigned, as if the moment he had feared since yesterday had finally arrived. "They know," Elias said quietly. "The Feldgendarmerie. They know something is wrong. They will return. And this time, they will not leave until they find what they want." Carter's voice was rough. "Then come with me. We can run. I can move, slowly but—" Elias shook his head before the sentence finished. "No. You cannot run with that leg. You would be caught within an hour, and if I am with you—" He let the unspoken truth hang in the dusty air. Execution. On the spot. Carter's jaw tightened. "I won't let you die for this." Elias stepped closer, kneeling down so they were eye level. "James, I made my choice the moment I told the others to search the wrong direction. You did not force me." His voice softened. "I helped you because I could not watch another man die alone in the snow. Not again." The barn was silent except for the soft moan of wind through cracked boards. Carter swallowed hard, words sticking in his throat. Outside, a distant engine growled, the unmistakable sound of a truck returning. Elias stiffened. "They are back." Carter reached for him, grabbing his sleeve. "Elias, listen to me. Run, hide. Tell them you found nothing." "They will not believe me," Elias whispered. "They already decided I am guilty." Heavy boots hit the frozen ground outside. More than before, Carter's pulse hammered. "Then hide with me," he hissed. "We can wait them out." Elias shook his head slowly. "If they find you with me, they will shoot you before you speak, but if they find only me—" A sad smile flickered across his face. "Maybe they will assume I acted alone. Maybe you can still escape when they leave." Shouts erupted outside. The sergeant's voice barked orders. Dogs snarled. Elias stood, smoothing his uniform as if preparing for inspection. "This is the only way," he said. Carter felt something in his chest crack. "Elias, don't do this." The young soldier turned to him one last time. His eyes, those tired, gentle eyes, held a strange peace. "James, live. Tell someone I tried." Before Carter could stop him, Elias stepped out of the barn and pulled the door shut. Carter crawled to a gap in the boards. Through the narrow slit, he watched the scene unfold with helpless horror. Elias walked into the open, hands raised. The Feldgendarmerie sergeant smiled the way a wolf smiles at cornered prey. "Gefreiter Weber," he said coldly, "you have been very eager to mislead our search." Elias stayed silent. The sergeant circled him. "You know what we do to traitors?" Elias finally spoke, voice steady. "I am no traitor." The sergeant's eyes burned with mocking amusement. "You are, and you will confess before you die." Carter's fists tightened until his nails cut into his palms. Two soldiers grabbed Elias, forcing him to his knees. The sergeant drew his pistol. Elias didn't look afraid. He looked relieved, as if the weight he had carried since his brother's death was finally slipping from his shoulders. The sergeant raised the pistol to Elias's head. Carter pressed his forehead against the wood, helpless, grief tearing through him. A single shot cracked across the valley. Elias fell sideways into the frost. The soldiers moved away. The sergeant examined the barn briefly but dismissed it with a grunt. "Nothing here. Move on." Minutes later, the engine rumbled again and the truck disappeared down the road, taking its noise, cruelty, and certainty with it. The valley fell silent. Carter pushed the door open and limped to Elias, collapsing beside him. Snowflakes drifted down, settling on the young soldier's uniform. Carter reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder, voice breaking in the cold air. "I will tell them," he whispered. "I swear it. They will know your name." He stayed kneeling there long after the cold bit into his bones, long after the forest swallowed the last echo of boots. Elias Weber had saved an enemy pilot, and for that mercy he had paid with his life. But Carter would live. And because he lived, the world would one day hear the story of the German soldier who chose humanity over war.